Hey, howdy, hey guys. Welcome back to a new Star Wars Saturday. This one's going to be a quick history on Darth Vader's cybernetic armor. Believe me, it is not what you think. Following his deadly battle with Obi-Wan Kenobi on Mustafar in Revenge of the Sith, Darth Vader was put into a cybernetic black armor. The armor was made to maintain and protect the young Skywalker. But we all knew that was an obvious fact, right? Anyway, his suit was followed by an ancient Sith tradition where the dark side warriors would don this heavy armor for battle since they'll be doing most of the dirty work for their master. The suit was partially installed with Sith alchemy or Sith magic to augment Darth Vader's physical strength and vitality, as he lost a majority of it after he lost his limbs. The armor encased him completely, making a hermetic seal to cycle air in and out of his charred lungs, as well as protect his severely charred skin. He didn't even look human, if you ask me. Big fact, the armor was extremely uncomfortable to wear. Within time, Vader learned to just live with the isolation imposed on him, and he had to change his lightsaber styles due to how heavy his suit was. His shoulder armor was the most heaviest out of all of them. He couldn't even raise his arms over his head without intense pain, discomfort, and difficulty. The suit was extremely weak to electrical discharges, although Vader added some insulation to absorb the lightning. However, it obviously was not enough to stop Palpatine's lightning, which ended up killing him in the process, but we'll come back to that. To escape the armor's claustrophobic nature, as it would probably give any of us some major anxiety, Vader made several pressurized med chambers where he could take off his armor and still survive. The helmet was black polished from voodoo hide. The front was carved to fit around his helmet, his head, to look like some fearsome skeleton face. That's intimidating right there. It was made of Durasteel and plastoid, which is kind of like steel and plastoid, but stronger, I think. The inside layer of the mask locked onto the helmet, making the suit usable for space, water, you name it. Besides protection, it also stuck needles into his head, face, and neck in order to connect Vader's brain with his suit. I don't even want to get into detail with that. That is just uncomfortable. That's worse. That's just nightmare-inducing. So if it got hot outside, the excess heat would bleed through the surface of the helmet, the metal surface. So basically, if Vader went out into the hot desert in that type of suit, he won't get hot. He won't start hot and sweaty. And if he goes out into the cold, like on Hoth, he'll be heated up perfectly fine. The eyelids of the helmet could be changed to thermal tech, night vision, however Vader wanted at his simple will to expand the limits of human vision. It also came with 2 eye shields to protect Vader from blindness near intense light. Remember that scene in Rogue One where the rebels are pinned behind that door and Darth Vader comes out with his lightsaber? Right before he could see perfectly fine in the dark, whenever we had no idea he was there. His helmet also came with a Sorosub DH-57 comlink that was built into the helmet just to make it easy for Vader to communicate with others privately. It was also cheap as well. It also came with a voice synthesizer, which when you lock onto the helmet, it translates Vader's weak speech to give a pretty impressive amount of vocal quality and also add a baritone timbre bass tone to it, which is why we hear him in his deep James Earl Jones voice to sound more intimidating rather than his natural Anakin Skywalker voice. Whether it's Hayden Christensen or Matt Lanter from the Clone Wars is unknown. But without the mask, his own voice will be little more than a whisper. Listen to him in Return of the Jedi. You already have, Luke. You were right. You were right about me. That's what he sounds like. And it is pretty sad that he went through all this. I can't even imagine living that even a couple days, let alone 20 plus years. Crazy thing is, DD-13, one of the droids that was fixing him, suspected that Palpatine intentionally made the suit this flawed to keep Vader from rebelling. And even, this is kind of sadistic and kind of just nerve-wracking. Palpatine told the droids to keep Vader awake during his surgeries without anesthetics, which, by the way, lasted for days. So basically, Vader felt everything, every cut, every wire placed in his body, everything. What's worse is he also had to remove his suit and his robotic limbs during maintenance sessions periodically. Imagine that. Because of his injuries, most of Anakin or Vader's senses were permanently damaged and severely at that. The medical droids rebuilt the cartilage of his outer ear, literally, but his eardrums melted beyond repair when he was getting burned. Sound waves had to be transferred into his inner ear. I honestly don't know how, without the mask, that he could hear in the first place. Luckily for Vader, his spine, his mouth, and his nose were the very few parts of his body that were not damaged by his injuries. Eventually, his spine had to get replaced as well, which I don't know what he got replaced with, probably a metal spine, due to his body not being able to sustain the weight of the suit. I don't even know if I could. Luckily for Vader, remember when I said he could still eat? He could still taste food through his mouth and eat normally, but only when he was inside a med chamber since he has to take off his mask. He could also receive nourishment through liquids, intravenous, anything, and all other stuff, and to rely on catheters, collection pouches, and recyclers to deal with liquid and solid waste. Imagine that. He had to go to the bathroom in his suit, which is gross, and he had to make the suit even heavier. And he has to routinely get those replaced. Yuck. But in public, though, Vader claimed that he never ate or drank. Of course, it's Vader. The thing that I find the most nightmare-inducing is that his skin was practically leathery after he got burned, and his body had to periodically get scrubbed and cleansed periodically of necrotic flesh. I don't even want to know what that smelled like. There was a control box on his chest, which we all know if you've seen Darth Vader at least once, which that regulates his heartbeat, going to the bathroom, pretty much his major stuff of his suit. The control box on his chest connected all the tubes that pumped air into his lungs and his other tubes that entered his throat. So if the ones on his chest that go into his lungs automatically, if it glitches, he could breathe normally for just a limited amount of time. The control box was constantly beeping and lit up for no reason, which prevented rest and sleep. And sleep, in those extreme rare moments that he finally got to sleep, was a nightmarish jumble of recurring gosh-awful memories that he would just rather forget. Some of which, his most humiliating moments in his entire life as Anakin Skywalker, which he would probably love to forget. Remember what I said about Palpatine constantly threatening Vader with Force lightning? Well, this definitely comes into play, because in Episode 6, Return of the Jedi, when Vader fought his son Luke Skywalker, because he's Anakin Skywalker, he fought his son Luke, losing to him whenever Luke sliced off Vader's right arm, which was cybernetic anyway. Afterwards, Luke refused to join Palpatine, strike his father down, and become a Sith Lord under Palpatine, replacing Vader. Enraged by this, Palpatine tormented Luke with Force lightning. In pain, Luke begged for his father's help. So overcome with emotion, just beyond his comprehension, as he was watching his son getting killed in front of him by his own master, Vader, turning back to the light, now redeemed as Anakin Skywalker, no longer Darth Vader, he picked up Palpatine, shocking both of them in the process, shorting out Vader's life support system as he threw down the Emperor. The lightning that lashed Anakin was of lethal intensity. The ones that shocked Luke were extremely low-powered, merely to cause agony and torment. As Sidious is, sadistic and the devil, he's the devil basically in Star Wars, he wanted Luke to suffer before his death. When Anakin grabbed Palpatine, he intensified the Force lightning to lethal intensity with the intent of finishing Luke. Instead, it hit Anakin and himself rather than Anakin's son. The lightning was so intense that it made Anakin's bones glow through his flesh and his armor, which is why whenever Palpatine is shocking Luke, that his bones are not glowing, because it's not at a high power. Anakin's life support system shut down after throwing down Palpatine, leaving Anakin mortally hurt and paralyzed inside a powerless suit. Luke attempted to get himself and his dad out of the Death Star, but Anakin knew that he was dead anyway because his life support system's gone. He's literally got minutes left to breathe before his body's just going to give out. And asked Luke to remove his mask so he could see him without the lens filters for the only time. He literally says, "Let me look on you with my own eyes." After Anakin's death and the Death Star blowing up, the group was reunited on Endor. Before the fireworks and stuff went on, Luke buried his father's suit, like Jedi tradition, burning it. By the way, if you wonder why is that Jedi tradition, go watch The Phantom Menace. I know it's the first. It came out in 1999. The Phantom Menace. Qui-Gon Jinn, Obi-Wan's master, was killed on there. Spoiler alert if you haven't watched Star Wars. But Qui-Gon Jinn was burned at his funeral. He was kind of cremated. Vader's body was buried in a similar way. But anyway, that's the history of Darth Vader's cybernetic armor and how he truly was inside and out from Revenge of the Sith to Return of the Jedi, which was 20 plus years. It does make you think differently on Vader. Everyone sees him as this unstoppable dark side force that cannot be stopped as the fallen Jedi Knight Anakin Skywalker, when in fact, he is the most miserable character in all of just movie history. This is the worst depression you can ever think of. Honestly, Vader should be used by therapists. Vader is just so miserable. He's living through hell every day for years with Palpatine, aka Satan, holding the pitchfork. If anyone is depressed, you gotta talk to them, all right? Everyone has something sad and something that they got a problem with. Trust me, you think you're living through hell if you're depressed? Not like Vader. Vader is far worse than you could ever imagine. Anyway, guys, thank you so much for watching. Be sure to like, share, comment, and subscribe. And may the Force be with you. Or should I say, may the Force be with you always.